What? Oh, girls!
Oh.
Dance fight!
Despicable Me 3 is a brand new film from Illumination Animation at Universal Studios and is the third entry into Despicable Me, the franchise. It stars Steve Carell as Gru as he is trying to deal with the fact that he has been fired. He is also having a personal vendetta against Balthazar Blatt, who is this 80s inspired villain who never got old, who never grew up, and became the persona that he had been so long. Gru also gets the news that he has a twin brother that is also played by Steve Carell. And in this story, they are trying to work out whether or not Gru wants to be a villain again, because he gets fired from the AVL. And so this movie is more about Gru trying to find out more about his brother, and trying to be more of... So going into this film, I had very low expectations, particularly because the first film is enjoyable, but it's not really great. The second film in this franchise was probably the lowest it can be. I didn't really remember a lot from that film. And let's not discuss Minions, because it's actually kind of bad. Let's just say that. I mean, granted, it made over $1 billion freaking dollars at the box office, so I guess I can't really complain that much. But the movie itself was very, very bad, and if you really want a full, detailed explanation as to why I hate that film so much, Ralph the Movie Maker has a good video on that one, which I'll link in the description down below. Getting down to brass tacks, this movie felt very unnecessary, to say the least. I didn't really think that we needed another film in this franchise. I mean, let's be honest here. There's not a lot of older audiences that would be really wanting to go into this film. But I do have to also say that this is kind of one of those films where you just kind of want to just watch it and not do anything with it. Again, most of this movie felt very unnecessary, and it just... I don't even know why this film was made, other than the fact that Despicable Me is a brand from Universal and Illumination Animation, that they needed to make another movie so that they could keep their studios afloat. And that's kind of reflective in the script. The script in this one is kind of weak. And that's mostly due to a lot of this stuff being very fractured. We have multiple different storylines in this one. We have one storyline where Lucy wants to be a better mother. Agnes wants to find a unicorn but get something else instead, which I won't spoil here. Gru and Drew have their own storyline, and then Balthazar Blatt has its own storyline, and a lot of it gets kind of lost in translation. I mean, it's kind of weird watching this film and not thinking about, like, oh, well, what's this other character doing? But then also at the same time, we have another storyline with the Minions where they kind of revolt against Gru because Gru does not want, to do any more villainy. And Mel, who is probably the least convincing character of this entire film, pretty much leads a revolt against Gru by running away and quitting. And the fortunate thing about this film is that you don't get a lot of minions, which is the godsend of this film. Pretty much every single one of these movies has had minions, and the less minions the movies have, the better the turnout, because the Minions only serve to be kind of serviceable comedy, and looking at how the critical response was to Minions, a movie that's pretty much primarily focused on the actual, yellow pills themselves, I'm kind of glad that they kind of toned that down just a bit. I know some fans of Despicable Me will find that kind of irritating to not have Minions, but for me, thinking that they're probably one of the most annoying side characters of all time, I think is good. I think it's a good thing that Minions are not all over this film. And in replacement of that, we get more of a story about Gru finding his brother, and that's about it. There's nothing too deep about this film. This one felt very safe. It doesn't go full emotion. It just feels like a cheapened version of Pixar. There's even a point in this film, towards the beginning of the film, where they pretty much smack Pixar in the face. And I'm not going to disclose what it is, but once you see the two fish, you'll understand what movie they're referencing there. That's just, you know, they make a lot of pot shots towards Disney. Not a lot of them, but they make some pretty good ones. But in the end, Despicable Me feels very unnecessary, and its pot shots don't really help save it. But there is a couple things I want to point out with you know, what I really liked about the film. I like Trey Parker as a creator. I like Trey Parker as a voice actor. He obviously does one of my favorite shows of all time, South Park. And, you know, he's been developing also a video game at the same time, The Fractured Butthole. Still the funniest name, but he also gives this really nice performance as this person who's been stuck in the past, and he can't distinguish what he is on the reality side and what he was on television, and his show gets canceled, and I like his sort of story, but the villain gets very sidelined in the film, and it feels like he didn't really have much of a presence, but every time he was on screen, I found him pretty enjoyable. Another standout in this one is Agnes. Agnes is probably the cutest character in this entire trilogy, simply because the voice actress who plays Agnes is just so cute. Like, you believe that, you know, it's this little girl who wants to find magical unicorns. You know, that's... it's kind of the weirdest sounding thing, but, you know, she's adorable. She's a little kid, and she's a little bit naive, and that's what makes her kind of likable in this film. Other than that, I found the rest of the plot stuff kind of boring, and doesn't really connect much. I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of fans of Despicable Me that will go out and watch this and defend this film, but I'm sorry, I'm just not a big fan of these anymore. I'm not a big fan of Illumination Animation. They haven't really made a great Illumination film ever, in my opinion. They still need to work on it, but in the end, I think Despicable Me, while being a harmless film, felt very unnecessary, and it felt kind of like a cash grab. There is some admirable parts about the animation. The animation's kind of good, at least, but aside from that, it's just one of those films where I'm just going to say meh. I'm probably not going to see it again for a while, but that's just me. I'm going to give Despicable Me 3 a C-. Well, at least the good thing is that this movie was better than Minions, and it was way better than the second Despicable Me, but it just doesn't get to the same level as the first film, because the first film I really do like. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Despicable Me 3. Come back tomorrow for another review. I don't exactly know which Spider-Man episode will be coming up, because I'm recording this on the day the first episode got released, so, but yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.